Now, there are just a few days until Donald Trump's second inauguration. Our guest says his potential tariffs on Canada's oil industry will hurt both Canada and U.S. relations. For more, let's bring in Clay Seigle, Senior Fellow for Energy Security at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Hi, Clay. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Hey, Mark. It's great to be with you.
Now, if these tariffs come in against Canada's energy, what would the ripple effects look like?
Well, we believe they would be substantial. From an oil industry perspective, the proposed tariffs are really a lose-lose proposition for businesses and consumers in both countries. I mean, the oil that's in Alberta, Saskatchewan, has a natural home in the Midwestern United States, which consumes about 4 million barrels a day of oil from that source of supply. And there's really no other outlets for that oil to easily get to market. And this mirror situation in the United States. So the Midwestern U.S. largely landlocked and depends on that source of supply, doesn't have an easy way to substitute for that flow. So if that flow is disrupted by an external event, like a 25% across the board tariff, making it prohibitively expensive in many cases, businesses and consumers in both countries are going to wind up being hurt.
Now, tell us what would happen, again, if tariffs were to be brought in against Canadian energy. What would happen to purchases out of the U.S. and how would it affect refiners in the U.S.?
Sure. So for refiners in the United States, they're looking at the cost to acquire crude oil feedstocks. And they're comparing the price and the economics and logistics from various sources. It's a no-brainer in a balanced trade environment for U.S. refiners, and again, particularly in the mid-continent, Midwestern U.S., to import by pipeline from Canada. That system has worked really well for both sides, and it's provided an affordable source of crude feedstocks for those refineries. With a tariff on board, that oil becomes much more expensive. And so refiners would have to have a combination of accommodating those higher costs through paring back their purchases of Canadian crude and also passing on some inevitable higher costs of acquiring that crude to their fuels market, to the refined products that they sell, which naturally will cause pump price increases in those markets in the United States. On the Canadian side of the border, if purchases from those United States refiners are throttled or start to dry up, then naturally you're going to accumulate an overhang, a glut of crude oil on the Canadian side, and producers there are going to be forced to curtail production because there will eventually be a physical limitation on storage capacity for crude, and at the same time their economics of producing and marketing the crude will no longer be favorable. So this is what I meant by kind of a lose-lose for businesses and consumers on both sides.
Right, it sure sounds like it. Now, Clay, we know there's been a lot of consternation and hand-wringing about these potential tariffs across the board, but also for energy, as we're discussing. Ultimately, though, what are the odds that the Trump administration or the incoming administration is just bluffing here?
I love this question. I think that the odds are substantial. And the folks who are coming in with the incoming administration are market savvy. They understand energy markets. They understand the trade relationships that benefit businesses on both sides. And so there probably is some degree of posturing in terms of the announced intention to have the 25% tariff and to not have an exclusion for energy like oil and natural gas. It does seem like posturing and positioning is probably playing some role in setting up the dynamic for the incoming administration.
But having said that, would you say that...
Because the math, the economics are not there.
Sorry, okay, fair enough. Now, would you say that even if they are bluffing, that energy producers and companies across the energy realm essentially have spent time and resources and putting in contingency plans in case the tariffs come in?
Well, they have to. I mean, businesses are responsible for de-risking various scenarios and various external shocks to supply and demand and market conditions. So when you have something that could be as impactful as this announced tariff plan, those businesses on both sides of the border have to take it seriously. And even if it's a low probability outcome, they do have to spend time and resources developing those contingency plans for how they would deal with it, just in the event that it does go through. I'm sure that folks on both sides of the border are hoping for a different outcome, where the current trade relationships in energy can continue to flourish and thus provide prosperity for both nations.
And Clay, just lastly, away from tariffs and more about a global supply. We know that the U.S. has slapped more sanctions on Russia. We believe the Trump administration will bring in some tariffs against Iran and maybe Venezuela. So what would that do to supply? And can OPEC Plus sort of, do they have the capacity to make up for any supply shortfall?
And there are quite a few sources of potential supply shortfalls. The good news, the silver lining when we think about these supply-demand dynamics, first of all, we're expecting growth in oil supply this year to outpace growth in oil demand. And so there should be, in a base case scenario, sufficient new supply coming on board, even away from the OPEC Plus countries, including from Canada, in order to help balance global markets. It's also the case that OPEC and its partners, so OPEC Plus, are withholding, curtailing about 6 million barrels a day of supply from the market. They actually have a plan to gradually bring that oil, part of that oil, back into the market as conditions warrant. So the current plan, and this has been postponed a few times since last summer, is to, in April of this year, begin bringing back, let's say, about 180,000 barrels per day over the course of 18 months. So that would add about 2.5 million barrels a day. We do have to keep in mind, though, that these smaller disruption sources could add up to one big aggregate disruption. I think that the extra supply from OPEC Plus could handle Iran. It could probably handle a disruption from Russia, but it's not counting on having to handle a disruption from Canada, too.